Whenever someone brings out the idea of improving cycling, it is common to hear the same rebuttal mentioned, be it in conversations or in community meetings. You can't cycle in Singapore because it's too hot. It's just not going to work. Or is that really true? In Tampines, a residential town in eastern Singapore, cycling makes up an estimated 3% of all trips made. I know, this is laughable by international standards, but come on, this is more than twice the national average. Here, you'll find many people cycling, but few of whom are what you expect when an average person hears the term cyclist. No expensive bikes, tailored jerseys, or Strava overlays. According to a 2014 study by the NUS, 58% of the cycling population do so for utilitarian purposes. And as you might expect, the main type of bicycle you'd find in Tampines is the Mama Choi bicycle. It is a steel-framed, single-speed bicycle that is geared for everyday cycling. Not Just Bikes has a great video about this type of bicycle, called Oma Fiets in Dutch. These aren't the people who cycle to get KOM records, create Strava art, or chase lampposts. These are the people who cycle to get to work, ferry children, or in other words, lead their lives. People cycling range from school children, to parents, and even people well into their 50s and 60s. Tampines has temperatures just as warm as most built-up areas in Singapore, reaching temperatures of up to 32 degrees Celsius on most days. Yet somehow Tampines has more than 3 times more people cycling than in other towns. Why is that so? Well, Tampines has a history of cycling infrastructure dating back to as early as 2007. It was the first town to legalize cycling on footpaths and the first town to have cycling paths, pushed by its former Member of Parliament, Irene Ng. Over the years, paths were added by various authorities, with almost all roads expected to have separated bike paths by 2022. These paths are kept away from motor traffic, making it safe for people of all ages to use. At a mere 2 meters wide, these bidirectional paths are narrow, and many are crappy in terms of design. But hey, at least they are usable. In places without cycling paths, roads are usually just 1 lane wide and are designated as primary access. This results in lower car traffic than many other places, and despite having a speed limit of 50 km per hour, it sure is much more pleasant to cycle on the road here than a multi-lane arterial here. The Park Connector network, albeit designed for leisure, is commonly used by people commuting, as they provide valuable shortcuts which I'll talk about in a later part of this video. One thing that makes cycling attractive in Tampines is the number of destinations spread out across the town. In many other towns, activities are planned to only happen in the town centre, with swaths of land zoned residential only sprawling outwards. This results in the majority of bike trips being home to town centre commutes for almost every purpose. Want anything more than a minimart or a small coffee shop? Then you have to travel all the way to the town centre. But in Tampines, there are multiple destinations all over the town, not just the town centre. There are markets such as this in the south, an ice cream cafe in Tampines West, here's a shopping street in Tampines East, and another in Tampines North. The proximity of these destinations to where people live reduces trip lengths needed to get basic things done. As bicycles are human-powered vehicles, having to stop and start frequently is tiring, inefficient, and disrupts the momentum of cycling. Park connectors, though designed for leisure, provide viable alternatives to driving and transit. For example, if I were to travel from Tampines to Simei Station, my journey on a bike looks like this, while that for driving looks like this. If I were to drive, I'd have to deal with 7 traffic lights, but if I were to cycle, I'll only have to stop a maximum of 4 times, which will soon become 3 with the construction of a new underpass for pedestrians and cyclists. This might sound paradoxical at first, but constructing quality cycling infrastructure actually makes driving more pleasant, as a reduction of interactions between bikes and cars makes getting around so much better for everyone. In addition, bicycle-only routes made by the town council provide attractive shortcuts for cyclists, which are often faster than travelling by bus or car. take for example, a trip from an ice cream shop here to Tampines bus interchange. Travelling by bike, not only do I have to stop half the number of times I need to if I drove, this journey takes me past beautiful low-rise flats, the Central Park, the Town Hub, and a short stretch of footpath before I park my bicycle. This trip is not just faster than driving, it is also much more enjoyable. Some people think that cycling cannot be done because one will be drenched in sweat after travelling long distances. And that's true. A bicycle alone cannot replace a car for long distances, but a combination of modes can. Few will be willing to cycle from their home in Tampines to Jurong East every day, but cycling a short distance to the MRT? Not a problem at all. Given that the furthest residential block from the central station is just 2 kilometers away, bicycle trips are usually under 10 minutes each way, which happens to be within Singaporeans' preferred duration for cycling trips. Plus in Tampines, there isn't just one, but 3 MRT stations to choose from, reducing that distance even further. This is the bicycle parking lot at Tampines MRT station at 8 AM on a Friday morning. The mall isn't open yet there's so many parked bicycles, because it is easy and convenient to transfer from bike to train here. There are more than enough parking spaces available, with one next to the Downtown Line entrance, and another right outside the bus interchange. Just like many other people who commute by bike, here's yours truly, cycling to the MRT station. And with morning temperatures hovering at a comfortable 28 to 30 degrees Celsius, sweating isn't an issue at all. Unsurprisingly, this falls within Singaporeans' preferred temperature range when cycling of 29.5 to 31.5 degrees Celsius. And despite many hours of the day having temperatures within that band, some people will inevitably dispute that they still find the weather too hot, with that being one of the top 3 excuses for inaction. But if the only time you're exposed to the elements is the walk from an air-conditioned box to an air-conditioned building, you never get acclimated to the weather, and thus everything outside of an air-conditioned room will feel unbearably hot. Remember this scene at Tampines West? This was filmed on a sunny day at 11:30 AM with a temperature of 32 degrees Celsius, yet people still cycle. The same can be said for walking. Here, the weather is 33 degrees Celsius, yet people still walk, sit, stand, and soak into the environment. This wasn't shot in Tampines, but you get the point. You might hear some avid leisure cyclists claim that the weather is a big factor in putting people away from commuting by bike, and I cannot blame them for that. Say if one's bike is optimized for speed at the cost of utility, minute changes in the weather can drastically affect one's ride quality, and consequently, the perception of commuting by bike. But when cycling is one's primary mode of transportation, who really cares about the weather? There are many choices of gear out there for cycling in tropical weather, but to make things easier for people getting started, I'll share what I wear when cycling. A t-shirt, a pair of jeans, and a pair of shoes. That's it. This is literally what most Singaporeans wear when leaving their homes. There's really nothing special about it. And in the event of wet weather, then there's the option of a poncho or an umbrella. Because cycling is the quickest and most convenient mode of travel in Tampines, except for car owners, it isn't uncommon to see people making the switch from taking the feeder bus to cycling the last mile on their own. This study by NTU proves so, with 28% of people cycling formerly being bus passengers who have probably discovered that cycling is faster. This factor of convenience should never be underestimated, as it is the number one reason why people cycle in Tampines. The next step forward in getting more people to cycle is to further discourage driving within the town, by taking away car lanes and converting them to bus or bike lanes so that other alternatives become even more attractive. Tampines isn't the only place that has people cycling in temperatures above 25 degrees Celsius. The city of Seville has summers even hotter than Singapore's, yet cycling makes up 9% of all trips made in the city, thanks to the construction of cycling paths built over car parking spaces. Street Films has a few videos of infrastructure there, so be sure to check them out. Just like Seville, a similar trend in Singapore has also been observed, with a 50% increase in demand for cycling after the implementation of cycling networks. Cycling in Singapore, while it sounds new and trendy, isn't that new after all. In fact, it used to be the primary mode of transportation, with bicycle paths present along arterial roads in the city centre as early as the 1960s. But these bike paths were scrapped by the 1970s in favour of car lanes and car parking, and the result of that can be seen today. The central area is flanked with multi-lane roads and plagued with traffic. It is noisy, uninviting to walk in, and unsafe to cycle in, and it wasn't always this way. This is a picture of Hill Street, taken in the 1930s. There are many people riding bicycles, rickshaws, and there's even a trolley bus line for public transportation. This is safe and inviting. There's little car traffic, and due to the nature of human-powered vehicles, speeds are generally low, meaning that crashes often do not result in serious injuries. Today's Hill Street looks like this. It has been expanded in the 1980s and is now a 10-lane road with heavy car traffic. Cycling along this road, you are exposed to polluted air with cars whizzing by at 60 km per hour. Since getting hit by a driver at that speed results in a 75% chance of severe injury, cycling along this road is not just uninviting, but also dangerous. This is also further discouraged by Singapore's pro-car laws, because reenacting that scene in the 1930s today is illegal. Cycling on the road without a helmet could warrant jail time of 3 months per person. Look at how many years of jail time you could add up in this photo. Singapore also cracks down on quote-unquote oversized bicycles. Many rickshaws with cargo are wider than 70 centimeters and are heavier than 20 kilograms, all of which will be impounded if caught by the police. In addition, these people will be slapped with a fine of $150 each, because if there are more than 5 cyclists, they must be spaced 30 meters apart. No, I am not making this up. The Ministry of Transport has a firm belief that this is needed because of space constraints, the same excuse used when they refuse to make bike lanes. It's just another law that encourages driving despite all that fancy car light campaigning. Unsurprisingly, very few people cycle here today. If there's something we can learn from Tampines, it's that blaming the heat is a lame excuse. The tropical climate is not an issue. The weather isn't a problem at all. Blaming the weather, if anything, is just an excuse used by some people to put off and push away the discussion of safe cycling infrastructure. The real reason why people cycle more in Tampines is because it is safe, inviting, and convenient to do so. And in other towns, not as many people do so because it is unsafe, uninviting, and inconvenient. If you want people to drive, optimize cars at the expense of everything else. And if you want people to cycle, optimize cycling and public transportation. Tampines is a good example of the next step that other towns in Singapore could take, and hopefully is a catalyst to making transportation more accessible to everyone. As the saying goes, if you build it, they will come. Hello everybody, thanks for watching. I know a few viewers have asked if they could support me through financial means, so I've started a Patreon page a few days ago. If you think my videos are worth your money, you may treat me a cup of tea at patreon.com/taysiutai. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks.